mysterious freewheeling hubs. How do they work, and do they do anything apart from make you look like a tool on the side of the road? Anyway, welcome back. It's been a while. Let's start by giving these crusty hubs a clean. Now, electrolysis is a fun way to remove rust, but I decided I'm in a hurry, so let's blast the hubs with acid instead. Phosphoric acid is nice, because any little rust bits not washed away are converted to ferric phosphate. And also, if you want to leave parts sitting around, phosphoric acid will act as a semi-permanent rust preventer as well. Now for paint. It's just black paint, but I'll show the details here so I don't have to cover it in the full axle video that you'll see next week. I used this black zinc as a primer. I would use this as the complete paint, but I can only get it in spray cans. And you get nowhere near the film thickness out of a spray can as you can out of a gun. So I blast a couple of coats of this satin black stuff over the top. Now I know there are better paint options. For the chassis I'll probably use a 2K system, but this is a compromise considering I'm spraying at home, and it's really just temporary protection until the Rover's oil system kicks in. Okay, freewheeling hubs. So in a four-wheel drive vehicle, if the transmission is in four-wheel drive, power goes to both the rear and front axles. But most people spend all their time driving around in two-wheel drive mode, selected by a gear lever or button that disconnects the front half of the vehicle at the transmission. But because the front wheels are of course connected to the road, the front half of the driveline, including the front differential, is being spun around as you drive along anyway. There's quite a bit of mechanical friction involved in turning half of the driveline for nothing, and wear and tear that goes with it. This is the centre of the freewheeling hub. When you decide you want to use four-wheel drive, the hub can be locked, and then unlocked when you're cruising along in two-wheel drive. You can see that selection moves this internal ring gear in or out. So freewheeling hubs are a lock between the front wheels and the front axle. When they are locked, the vehicle is exactly the same as a vehicle without freewheeling hubs. When they are unlocked, the front wheels are disconnected, meaning they roll along the road but are not pushing the front driveline along with them. If you're pulling these exact hubs apart, just be careful of this rubber seal. It's not a normal O-ring, and is probably a pain to replace if you need a new one. You can see the red paint around the numbers, and also I think I sprayed some clear over these in the past. Using a natural Greek yogurt container, I leave the parts to soak in paint stripper. With a little bit of scrubbing and a little bit of prep work, the parts cleaned up okay. So freewheeling hubs will reduce the amount of mechanical resistance as you drive along in two-wheel drive, with the hubs unlocked. Saves petrol, saves wear and tear. Perfect, right? Well, a lot of people think they're a load of crap. So why don't people like freewheeling hubs? Well, some people think they do nothing in terms of improving mileage or saving wear and tear. Why add an extra mechanical complication for snake oil? But in terms of Land Rovers, the main objection that seems to be widely accepted is that because the front half shafts aren't spinning around, oil isn't flung up into the top steering pin and bushing, and they will be destroyed. We're talking about the Ralco bushing. Now I don't think that very much oil, if any, gets into the bushing anyway. There'd be no reason for a Ralco bushing if the pin was supposed to be oil lubricated, Ralco being a material that specifically exists because it is self-lubricating. Still, if you're worried about it, it is something to consider. There's really only one trick to putting these things back together. You can see the base of the gear springy thing is a stamped thread. There is a little peg which hooks into one of these holes to keep everything in line. This is the only bit you can stuff up. The peg has to go into the correct hole so that the gear is clocked correctly. You can see they have helped us out by punching a little triangle next to the correct hole. There are 4 positions this can thread on. You want it so that when it just fully engages the thread, it's clocked so that the hole with the triangle next to it is above the hole for the peg. If you get it wrong, it's obvious when you try and play with the selector, so no drama. I put the peg in with a little thread lock. The peg doesn't actually do anything once the unit is back together, but I give it a good tap, because I don't really want it falling out and rattling around. So that's the selector bit back together. The other half of the freewheeling hub is the outer casing and the centre gear. The centre gear is actually going to spin in the outer case as a bearing surface, so plenty of grease. I stuff these with a lot more grease before they go back on the vehicle. I haven't put the rear half shafts back in yet, so let's use one for a demonstration. And okay, I know that freewheeling hubs would never actually go on a rear half shaft, but we can get over it together. Just for reference, this is a standard hub. Pretty straightforward. These holes are bolt holes to the wheels. If the half shaft turns, the wheel turns. You can see the gear at the centre of the freewheeling hub has a spline which matches the half shaft. It plops on just like this. In the vehicle there's a seal and castle nut as well, but I'll leave those out for now. If you look down in this hole, the outside of the centre gear is also splined, and the hub itself has an internal castle shape. Well, a big spline, I guess. That's where this ring selector gear thing comes in. If the ring gear is jammed down in the hole, the centre gear and outside casing are locked together. So right now, the hub is loosely assembled, and the selector is locked. The label says 4x4, but you can of course lock them and drive around in 2-wheel drive as well. You'll just be missing out on the freewheeling benefit. But if we switch into 2-wheel drive mode, or freewheeling mode, the ring gear is pulled back away from the centre gear, and now the hub is free to spin independently of the half shaft. So, freewheeling hubs. That's about all there is to them. But are they a load of crap? Well, what follows is my opinion, and only one opinion counts on this show. I can feel a significant difference coasting with the hubs locked or unlocked. I think the fuel saving is real. And as far as wear in the front axle, my U-joints, seal collars and differential were as good as new, so I have to assume that this vehicle, having freewheeling hubs, shows significantly less wear than otherwise. Ultimately, I think freewheeling hubs work fine, without any major downside. But if my vehicle didn't already have them, I wouldn't bother fitting any to it. Just because I don't drive a 40-year-old Land Rover to save petrol.